What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we got Cody on the show, our local draft expert. Cody, it's good to have you back on.
Hey, glad to be here, Alex. Just excited to see what actually unfolds here in about a week.
Yeah, I can't wait for this draft next Thursday. It's gonna be a lot of fun figuring out who goes where. Um, so yeah, let's just get into this thing. I mean, you were on last year. You've been on 2 years in a row now, around this time of year. How do you think this draft compares to the last couple that we've done? I mean, with all these quarterbacks going in the top 10, presumably, and so much talent. I mean, Kyle Pitts alone, one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen. I can't wait for this draft.
FNC drafts with five like bona fide top 10 quarterback picks. There are a lot of good wide receivers. Kyle Pitts is obviously a fantastic tight end. The interior of the defensive line, there isn't a whole lot there. Edge defenders, a lot of question marks, but
Yeah.
overall, it's looks like a pretty good draft.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let's get into start it out. I mean, pick one is obvious. Trevor Lawrence of the Jags. They've already given him his playbook and the offense, from what I heard. Did you see the quotes from Trevor Lawrence and his dad and his high school coach about how Super Bowl isn't he's not a win a Super Bowl at all costs type guy? Would that concern you at all? If you were a Jags fan, or do you think that his talent outweighs the concern?
No, that really doesn't concern me at all. I think that it actually is a little refreshing. So
Mm-hmm.
many of these interviews, you see these guys who are just so coached up. Everybody says the exact same thing. I think going into the whole process with a balanced outlook, um, there's such a huge spotlight wherever you are, especially as a number one pick. Getting this kind of a little bit more of a laid back attitude will probably help him more than I think
Yeah.
hurt him in the long run.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got no problem with it. I think that, he's going number one regardless, so his game will speak for himself more so than any comments like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
he's been a top prospect since he was what, like 16 years old. I
yeah.
think he's shown that he has the drive to, be an elite player. So not something that I'm super concerned about right now.
Do you see any concerns in his game at all? Like anything that you would keep an eye on?
Well, they did like the offense they ran at Clemson. There was a ton of just kind of gimmicky RPO type stuff, but any things you kind of try to critique with Trevor Lawrence right now is really nitpicking at this point.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. They talk about he's the best draft prospect since Andrew Luck. How would you compare him to Joe Burrow last year?
Uh, I think he's more physically talented.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Burrow, obviously, super accurate, um, really good from in the pocket. But I think Trevor Lawrence gives you a little bit more zip on the ball. He's obviously can run a little bit better than Burrow can.
Yeah.
A little bit better size as well. So just a really solid quarterback prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a no-brainer. Let's go to the Jets at number two. I mean, that one we all know is going to be Zach Wilson. What were your thoughts? I mean, moving on from Sam Darnold and Sam Darnold being a high pick, do you think they're making the smart decision? A lot of people are saying that, it wasn't entirely Sam Darnold's fault, all the struggles he had in New York with Gase and the weapons and all that, the dysfunction in New York. Is Zach Wilson going to be experiencing some of that same stuff? I mean, how much better do you think the Jets are going to be run and build around Zach Wilson compared to how they did around Sam Darnold? And is Zach Wilson a potential bust prospect being the Jets quarterback? There's going to be a lot of pressure there regardless.
Yeah, well, anytime you go into the number two overall pick, that's not going to be a super talented roster. I am
Mhm.
very high. I think Joe Douglas as a GM has done a very good job. I liked Robert Saleh, especially as a 49er fan. I think he's going to be a heck of a head coach. Um, I think it was an easy decision to move from Sam Darnold. Even with the poor coaching he's received, he hasn't been a good quarterback for the last 3 years. You're going to have to pay him soon. So if you can get extra capital by trading him away and get a fresh quarterback on a rookie deal, I
Yeah.
think you've got to go with the rookie.
Do you have any concern about Zach Wilson playing at BYU, not playing against great talent? Um, the arm talent, I think, is undeniable. I think he's a great prospect as well. But are there any concerns about who he played against?
Oh, definitely. But I think you could probably make those same kind of concerns with everybody except for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you get Trey Lance playing for North Dakota State.
Yeah.
Obviously, not a whole lot of people. He played against Ohio State for the most part. Played against a whole bunch of cupcakes. Um, Pretty much every game Zach Wilson played in, his offensive line dominated. His wide receivers were better than the cornerbacks. But if you try to separate his skill set from everything else, I think
Mm-hmm.
he has a lot of really special traits.
Yeah. Yeah, he can make every throw, and I was big on Zach Wilson earlier in the year. Those were when I thought that maybe the Bears could get him, and then those hopes and dreams fell away pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm high on him. I like his upside, so I agree. Moving on from Darnold is the right decision, and I look forward to seeing how he can do with the Jets. It's going to be a big adjustment for a kid from Utah, his entire life going to the Big Apple. And so I look forward to that. Are you a Mike LaFleur fan? His new offensive coordinator from San Francisco?
Yeah, he was I think the running game coordinator on
Okay.
San Francisco. So he's had his hand in stuff. He's never actually called plays. So that's
Okay.
something where there might be a little bit of a learning curve there for him when he first gets there, especially with a rookie quarterback, first time head coach like Robert Saleh. So first year might be a little rough, especially with the lack of talent there on the Jets. But I think by year 2 or 3, they're going to get things together.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. So let's go to pick 3. This is the pick I'm sure you're excited to talk about, and everyone's been debating for a long time here. The 49ers, your team. First of all, who do you want to go here? Who are you hoping goes to San Francisco?
Oh, it's Justin Fields, no doubt.
Okay. Um, how do you think he fits in? What do you think he would bring with the Shanahan offense, and how he would fit?
I think he brings pretty much everything you want in a starting quarterback. Super athletic. He's got enough arm strength to make all the throws. He's been super accurate. I think the only thing you can really ding him on is that processing speed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that can be explained away by the offense that Ohio State runs. They run a lot of like downfield option routes that really require him to hold on to the ball for a little while. Um, so there is a question whether once he goes into a more of a pro style offense, if he can move through his progressions quickly enough. But I think that throughout his history, he's shown that that shouldn't be too big of an issue. The other thing, I guess he's taken a lot of sacks that probably also can be attributed to those downfield option routes. But I have a lot of faith in Kyle Shanahan to scheme up an offense that he's going to thrive in.
Yeah, 100%. Now, all the experts, all the national media, the guys that are the most well connected, they're all saying Mac Jones. Um, is he your third favorite option? I mean, would you rather have Trey Lance over Mac Jones, or how do you feel about Mac Jones?
Well, I think Justin Fields is my clear favorite. The next two guys, Trey Lance or Mac, they're both kind of at the same tier for me. I think
Okay.
Mac Jones has shown that he can really operate an offense exactly how you call it.
Mhm.
And if that's all Kyle Shanahan cares about, I think he could come into San Francisco and be very successful. I don't know if giving up 3 first round picks for that guy just to
Yeah.
run the offense. I know they'll save, $25 million a year on the quarterback position, but that's still a pretty high price to pay for a guy like that. Trey Lance, probably the most gifted runner as a quarterback in this class. Big, powerful. I'm not convinced that his accuracy is where Kyle Shanahan would like it to be. Sometimes he misses a few too many routine throws. And I don't think that would really endear himself to Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, it's interesting there. Now, what was I gonna say? Like, so who do you think? Who are you anticipating? Do you think it will be Mac Jones?
You know what? I actually think it's going to be Justin Fields. I know a lot of people were in on Mac Jones earlier. Trey Lance has gotten picked up a little bit of steam here recently, but giving up those 3 first-round picks, I think the team wants to swing for the fence. Like they
Yeah.
don't want to settle for just a double here for Mac Jones. So I think it's going to be Justin Fields. I recently placed a few wagers now that sports gambling is legal here in Indiana. One of my tickets is plus 750 for Justin Fields. So I've got a little bit riding on that. I'm pretty confident that's what it's going to be, but I think any of the 3 guys, they're going to thrive in the Shanahan offense.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, if it is, that's gonna be a lot of people are gonna be like, wow, like, you know, usually when all the national media guys are saying it's gonna be them, usually they're right. But we've seen certain cases where they're not, and only the 49ers know. I'm with you. I would, if you're gonna move that high up and give up that much to go up, you take that like highest ceiling, the highest potential. Plus, with Kyle Shanahan's offense being, in my opinion, so quarterback friendly, you can put in a guy that needs a little bit of work and he can get it the most out of him. What's your thoughts on? So if it's Mac Jones, I think we all agree that Jimmy Garoppolo will probably get traded out. If it's Justin Fields, do you think that they would keep Jimmy G and potentially sit him behind him a little bit?
I really don't think so. I think the only situation where it would make sense is maybe Trey Lance.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a very high chance that Jimmy Garoppolo is either cut or traded by the time the season starts.
Okay. And it'll be interesting to see where he ends up and if he gets another opportunity to start or what happens with him. What's your thoughts on Garoppolo if he's going out the door? Are you, at the end of the day, are you a fan of his? Will you root for him? Do you think he got a raw deal, like injury wise? What do you think on Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, I was a fan of Garoppolo. I'm still a fan of Jimmy G. I think he gets a lot of criticism for just kind of managing the offense, but I think he's a good quarterback. He's got a super quick release, smart guy. I just think the fact that you have to pay him what you have to pay him,
Mm-hmm.
and hasn't been healthy his entire career. Plus the fact where just like his arm strength on those deep outs and deep balls hasn't quite been what you'd want it to be. It just if you can get that rookie quarterback on that rookie deal with a higher upside, I think you have to jump on that.
Yeah, I agree. If it does end up being Mac Jones, I get the feeling, are you going to be upset? And what's it going to take? How long is it going to take for you to come around and be like, Mac Jones?
I think I've kind of been on a roller coaster ever since that trade went down. So
Yeah.
I've kind of looked at everybody. I know the bright spots on all 3 guys. So I just have confidence in Kyle Shanahan and the rest of the coaching staff that whoever they pick, they're going to have, 4 years of a rookie contract of, a high level quarterback, no matter who they pick. All of these guys are worthy of a top 10 pick. So I think whoever it is, I'm going to get on board right away. I just, hopefully it's going to be Justin Fields.
All right, I hear you. Now, we've been going back and forth on this pick number 4 a lot with Atlanta. And you made some solid points about would they take a quarterback here? They just extended Matt Ryan or restructured his deal, so that would be difficult financially there. Presume like he's still got a few years left, talent wise too. And so it would make a lot of sense to go Kyle Pitts here. That would really load up the roster. Arthur Smith is famous for liking his two tight end sets on offense, so that would make a lot of sense. I still think there's a chance that maybe, the owner's like, I don't want to be picking this high again. And if we are, take a quarterback. Um, I don't know. Maybe they look at what Green Bay did with Jordan Love and think they could do the same thing. And if you look at it, so the Packers take Jordan Love, and that put a chip on Aaron Rodgers' shoulder. And next thing you know, he turns into an MVP guy the next year. Do you think Atlanta could possibly think along the same route? Like if we bring in a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance, they could provide a spark to Matt Ryan and get even better play out of him? Or do you think, the common sense, and I think we agree that common sense, the most realistic route is tight end Kyle Pitts here. But what do you think on that?
Well, I think the Falcons are in a position here where they really just can't lose. I think staying put is great, taking a quarterback's great, trading down if somebody else wants a quarterback could really pay big dividends for them. I really think that Matt Ryan's play really hasn't dipped off that much.
Yeah.
Before the trade last year with Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers really hadn't had a real dominant season for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's still good. He's still been putting up numbers. I think the biggest selling point against drafting a quarterback here is the roster as it stands right now, I don't think is good enough to make any sort of playoff run while Matt Ryan is still on the books. He's going to be, pushing $40 million against the cap for the next few years. So you're basically, if you pick a quarterback now, you're saying, all right, the next 2 to 3 years are down the drain. Like we're developing this next quarterback. Hopefully we're going to be set up for the long term. By then, your rookie quarterback's going to be, if he hits, is going to be getting a new deal relatively soon. So if they wanted to trade back or take Kyle Pitts, I think if they get lucky, if they hit on the right picks, they could be in the playoffs, especially with the Saints decline, and maybe even pushing for a Super Bowl if this offense really comes together and those young offensive linemen take a step forward. So it's, like I said, I'm not going to blame them for anything they do. If it were me, I think I would probably stay put and take Kyle Pitts, try to get that top offense in the NFL and make a push for Matt Ryan's last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, when you think about Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, Hayden Hurst, add Kyle Pitts to that, that's a lot of weapons. And Matt Ryan's shown before that he can light it up with the right guys around him. So I kind of agree with that. Like, make a run, see if you can get a championship out of them. They were close before, so I like it. I tend, Kyle Pitts is the pick here, but for me, it messes up my entire mock draft if I go Kyle Pitts here. I like going quarterback. So I've been going, Trey Lance is who I like to Atlanta. I think he could fit it well. So, I agree with you. Atlanta's in a position where they can't really lose here. So, let's go to the Bengals. Now, there's been some split here. I know where I would go. It's between probably tackle Penei Sewell or wide receiver Jamar Chase. And I get the wanting to go Jamar Chase, because if you go back to 2019, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase put up some unreal numbers at LSU. But coming off that injury, I have to go Penei Sewell here. What would you do here?
So this is another situation where I think there's a lot of really good options for them. If they stick at pick 5, I think I would lean Jamar Chase, just because, obviously Penei Sewell is a great prospect, but you've seen Burrow succeed with Jamar Chase before. And there are already so many questions going into the draft with these rookies. It just takes a little bit less of the guesswork out of it. You kind of know that you have more of a sure thing. You know these guys have played together before and they played together well.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think it might be smart if they float to the Dolphins, because I think the Dolphins ideally would want Jamar Chase. I think that's why they traded back to number 6. If they say, "Hey, Dolphins, we're taking Jamar Chase," and the Dolphins are willing to make kind of a Bears trade, a Trubisky-like trade, maybe throw the Bengals a second round pick and maybe a later conditional round pick to move up one spot, where they can still get Penei Sewell at number 6 and get a few picks in the process. I
Yeah.
think that could work out really well for them.
Yeah. I agree. The Dolphins are about it as far as who I would do it with, because I don't want to move back and then like have someone take the guy I want, like take Sewell. So one spot, I could see that, and if it could be a win-win. So we're split on that. I would go Penei Sewell. I mean, but I totally get the Jamar Chase. In my first mock, that's what I thought too. I was like, go Jamar Chase, but protecting Joe Burrow, needs to be an option. I mean, my thing on Jamar Chase is what happens if you take Jamar Chase and then Burrow goes down with injury again, and then who you got throwing it to him?
Yeah.
But if you can keep Burrow healthy, adding Jamar Chase to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd really opens up that offense too. And there's already chemistry, like what you were talking about.
Yep. And it does help in this draft. There's a lot of depth at the tackle position. I think even if they do pick a wide receiver now at the top of the second round, there should be some pretty solid options for them to choose from to kind of bolster that offensive line.
Yep, you're right. That's what everyone's saying. They're like, by the way, the draft is more than one round.
Yep. Especially in a year like this, it should be a really strong day 2 for a lot of teams who have a lot of draft capital there.
Nice. I think we're in agreement. If Jamar Chase is available at 6, that's what Miami's going to do. How much do you think Jamar Chase helps Tua? Is Tua, does he have the ability to, even if you draft Jamar Chase, do you see the explosiveness in Tua that Jamar Chase could bring out of him? Or do you have your concerns about Tua being a long-term franchise quarterback based on last year?
Yeah, I do have my concerns. However, it's kind of hard to really get a good gauge. The Dolphins' offensive line wasn't good last year.
Yeah.
The wide receivers weren't guys who got a lot of separation. And Tua was never a guy to throw super tight window throws.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fitzmagic, that is where he excels. So throwing those jump balls up to big guys like Devontae Parker or Preston Williams. Jamar Chase, though, he doesn't create a lot of separation either. But I think that maybe giving a young guy like that who could bond with Tua, you could develop some trust, could help Tua learn how to throw those kind of tight window jump balls, the back shoulder throws, stuff like that. So it could definitely help him in his development.
Yeah. And so talking about the offensive line, you think the Dolphins should go playmakers early on? That's probably the best prospects available, but you got like Rashawn Slater, some guys like that. I think Chase is probably, let's say the Bengals take Chase. Where would you go if you're Miami? Would you go someone like Waddle or Devontae Smith?
I think I jump on Sewell there. Like I said, their offensive line was really bad last year. I know there were a lot of young guys, rookies. They brought in Matt Skura. But I think plugging in Penei Sewell, maybe moving their right tackle, Robert Hunt, to the inside to shore up one of those spots could really, really help that offense a lot.
Okay, I like it. Now let's go pick 7, the Detroit Lions. This is an interesting pick. For a while, I was saying Devontae Smith out of Bama because they lost Kenny Galladay. Who they have really? Tyrell Williams. I think they got one other guy, but I can't remember. But they need help at wide receiver and playmakers. And Jared Goff, he needs all the help he can get there in Detroit. But so let's say this. Let's say Justin Fields, because he's still available on my mock. Let's say Justin Fields falls to 7. Is there any thought that Chris Spielman, being an Ohio State alum, sees Justin Fields, likes what he sees, knowing that Jared Goff has had a couple down years here? Maybe they take a quarterback for the future? What do you think?
I think if I was the GM of the Lions, I would jump on Justin Fields right there.
Yeah.
Jared Goff has kind of shown he's just kind of an average guy in the NFL.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would pick him, or if they weren't sold on Justin Fields, I think this would be a prime opportunity for another team to trade up, and they could
Yes.
really stock up on assets for the coming years. Maybe, the Broncos, Patriots, even the Bears, if the Bears wanted to fork over a lot of capital, they all could be players for that number 7 pick if he was still there.
Yep. My favorite trade up scenario is the Patriots here. And whether it be Justin Fields or Trey Lance, you could sit him behind Cam Newton for a year. And they're kind of similar skill sets a little bit. And so
Yeah, I agree.
Cam's got a lot of knowledge to pass on, and the Patriots are good talent development guys. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Patriots definitely a team to keep an eye on for the trade up scenario. Now Carolina's interesting at 8 because in my mocks I had them going quarterback, and then they trade for Sam Darnold. I know quarterback could still be an option there. I also had them taking Kyle Pitts if he fell to 8, and we have him going 4 here. Who would you think to Carolina? I mean, the first name that pops off for me would be someone like Rashawn Slater. What do you
That is
think?
exactly who I had slated in. Greg Little right now is slated to be their left tackle. He is not shown to be very good at all.
Mm-hmm.
Their left guard too is Pat Elflein. Hasn't been great his time in the NFL, so they definitely need some big time improvements on the offensive line. So yeah, I think that would be my choices, Rashawn Slater for them.
Okay. So then we got Trey Lance still available with Kyle Pitts going to Atlanta. We got Rashawn Slater going there. So then Denver. I mean, Micah Parsons. For me, if Trey Lance is available and I'm the Broncos, I'm taking quarterback. I'm not sold on Drew Lock. Maybe if one more year with Lock, maybe he can make some improvements. But I haven't been sold on Lock since they drafted him. I had my questions about him this entire time. So if Trey Lance is available, even if you bring him in and maybe he helps Locke take his game to the next level, I would consider going quarterback here. But if Big Fangio, you could go Micah Parsons easily. What do you think the Broncos would do?
I actually had Mac Jones slotted in here.
Yeah.
Just because I think they've got a really strong defense. They have a lot of wide receivers. They might have one of the top receiving cores in the entire NFL. So just getting a guy who could manage the game, get it to their open receivers, put their defense in good situations. I think that would be a pretty strong landing spot for Mac.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. And because Sam Darnold, I mean, you definitely have your. Or no, we're talking Denver. Yeah, with Drew Lock. What's your thoughts on Drew Lock? Do you think, he still has unlocked potential, or?
He just hasn't shown the ability to throw accurate passes, make the right decisions.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think he's just a kind of developmental backup type guy. He's not somebody you want to count on to lead the franchise.
Yeah, and there's rumors right now about if they don't go quarterback, you could bring in Teddy Bridgewater. But Bridgewater, how good is he? He had opportunities in Carolina last year, and that kind of struggled. So that's an interesting pick. So you go Mac Jones there to Denver. So let me write that down real quick. Broncos, Mac Jones.
And just to go back a little bit, I don't think we talked about this. For the Lions, I actually had Jalen Waddle as their pick. over Devonta Smith. I just think they've got so many just placeholders in their wide receiving core. Rashad Perriman, um, Quintez Cephas, just guys who probably aren't in the long-term plans. Jalen
Yeah.
Waddle is super explosive. I think you can play him on the outside, play him on the inside. He could just be a playmaker wherever you want, and just a very versatile piece, no matter what direction they end up going in the future.
Okay, I like him. I like Devontae Smith slightly more, but I still like Jalen Waddle. And are your concerns with Smith about the size and injury risk?
It's less about injury risk with the size. I just think you're going to have to scheme him a little bit, and just the outlier factor. He's small, he's not athletic, he's just a good football player. So somebody like that, I think he's really good. He deserves consideration in the top 10, but a team like the Lions who need just a little bit more flexibility going forward, I think Jalen Waddle is better for the long-term outlook for them.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I believe if not quarterback, the Lions would go receiver. Um, at 10 for the Cowboys, I've got Patrick Surtain. I think that makes a lot of sense. Cowboys need to shore up their secondary. They're giving up, 40 plus points a game at times last year. You think corner would be a good route for them? And Patrick Surtain, I think he's the best corner. What do you think?
I actually kind of like Caleb Farley a little bit better. It's just with his back injury, I don't think you can pick him this high. But I think this is kind of the most common pick that I've seen for any team beyond Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson going 1 and 2. It just makes so much sense. He reunites with his old teammate there in Dallas. They need a cornerback. He's a super high floor guy. He doesn't have the athletic traits to make you think he has a super high ceiling, but I think you could start him from day one and just expect improvement right away.
Yeah. I like reuniting him with Diggs, and I like what he brings. I mean, I was a huge fan of his dad, so it's hard for me not to like him and bias as far as that goes. But
there's a lot of these second generation guys coming into the draft. You've got Asante Samuel Jr. coming in. A few more guys later in the draft.
Jason Horn, son of
Yep.
Joe Horn. I like that. So pick 11 with the Giants. This is where. So I had Justin Fields going to Detroit. So this is where I would take Devontae Smith. How do you feel about that fit? And do you think the Niners would go wide receiver? I mean, I think if Smith or Waddle are available, Micah Parsons is also an option here as well to the Giants.
Oh yeah, definitely. Devonta Smith, I definitely considered here, especially with Kenny Golladay on the outside. Mm-hmm. I think that would free them up to kind of move Devonta a little bit in case he doesn't hold up on the outside quite as well as they'd like. I went with Christian Darrisaw.
Okay.
This is a team that had a really, really poor offensive line last year. I think that's a common trend with a lot of these teams picking in the top 10. But Andrew Thomas wasn't quite up to his draft billing. Will Hernandez has been a bust since he moved in. Shane Lemieux at right guard has been awful. Nate Solder is getting old at right tackle. So getting this big bruiser who can help Saquon Barkley once he's back from injury, hopefully help Daniel Jones. That's the route I went with my mock.
Is there any consideration, is it tackle over guard, or is there any consideration of Vera Tucker here?
I think Vera Tucker is going to be a very good, solid player. I just picking this high in the draft for a guy that's likely going to be a guard is a little bit rich for me. I know you do have the Quentin Nelsons, the Zach Martins, who are all-stars, but I think I'd shoot a little bit higher with a guy who could project to be a top tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, and I like Darrisaw a lot too. I'm kind of hoping he falls in Chicago, but chances are slim on that one.
Yep.
Once we trade up. Philly, I have Jalen Waddle to Philly here. I think wide receivers a need. Um, so that's where I went, just because Waddle fell that far.
Mhm.
What do you think Philly's looking at? Who do you have Philly taking?
They definitely need wide receiver. This is where I had Devonta Smith ending up.
Okay.
So both of us gave him an Alabama wide receiver. They
Yep.
definitely need help. They need to see what they've got in Jalen Hurts. So I think either one would make a lot of sense for them.
Nice. I had Rashawn Slater going 13 to the Chargers. So we got him going earlier now, which I could definitely see. And this is where I would take Darisaw if available. I think offensive line would be my top pick for the Chargers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean they shored up things a little bit with Corey Lindsey and Matt Filer, but still Trey Pipkins starting as their left tackle is not ideal.
Yeah.
With my mocks, I had Darisaw, Sewell, and Slater all off the board by now. So I addressed another weakness I thought they had with cornerback. This is where I had J.C. Horn going.
Nice.
So they've got a strong defense right now, and just adding J.C. Horn to that uh, kind of versatile multiple defense they've got could really put it over the edge, I thought.
Yeah, and secondary in that division is definitely needed. So
Yep.
I could definitely see that. Vikings. This is where I went Vera Tucker to the Vikings. It made some sense to me. With the way their two-headed running back monster with Delvin Cook and Madison, bring in a guard like Vera Tucker, protect Kirk Cousins, who's kind of a statue back there. That's where I went. What do you think with Minnesota?
Yeah, I think I seriously considered Vera Tucker here. Um, their offensive line is bad, but it's still the guard is just a little rough.
A
So
little
I
high.
ended up slotting Christian Barrymore here. I know they've got two big defensive interior guys, but they're both kind of run plugging, um, more almost nose tackle type. I think Christian Barrymore really would fit well as kind of a situational pass rusher, a penetrating defensive lineman instead of like
Yeah.
a gap clogging guy. So I slotted him in there, but I think they're really praying that one of the big three tackles drops them. If not, I could see them going in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the Vikings do there. Um, Now to New England, they're definitely a trade up, consideration. Um, what's your thoughts? So they brought back Cam Newton on a 1 year deal. I was a little bit surprised by that, but they seem to like Cam Newton and believe in him and believe in a full off season, and he doesn't get COVID this time around. Maybe he's a better player and they make a playoff run. Would you consider quarterback to New England and trading up? And what are your thoughts on doubling down on Cam Newton?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a team that is primed to make a trade up.
Mm-hmm.
There's also they might be waiting for either during the draft or after the draft to see Jimmy G's status.
Yeah.
But in my mock draft, I didn't have any trades. I just projected Trey Lance to fall to them here.
Okay.
So I think that would be a perfect situation for him. Very similar in style to Cam Newton. They've got this big two tight end offense, probably based on the power running game. So I think he could kind of slowly transition into the NFL from that North Dakota State kind of low quality of play division there, and just kind of take his time and slot in there for maybe late this year, next year.
Yeah, I like it. And sit behind Cam, that would be ideal. And yeah, I like all that. Um, and then if not, ideally, I think if they're not going to go quarterback and if they're going to stay put, they would love it if Micah Parsons. I would love to see Micah Parsons in the Belichick defense. I think that would be a perfect fit. Another guy I think could fit would be Owosu Koromoa from Notre Dame in Belichick.
Yeah,
But then,
definitely. I think if both of those guys are vastly different linebackers,
yeah,
but with really intriguing skill sets that I think Bill Belichick could put to great use.
yeah. Um, 16 to the Cardinals. I've got J.C. Horn. If he's available, they would jump at that opportunity. I feel like losing Patrick Peterson, needing to improve the secondary. I've been every single mock I picked J.C. Horn here, so I'm kind of just going all in on that one. What do you think with the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think Kevin Peterson and Malcolm Butler right now are their
Yeah.
slated starting outside cornerbacks, and that is just you cannot roll out those guys in the NFL.
What about
So I
they got Byron Murphy, right?
Yeah, and he's slated to be the slot. I think
Yeah.
they've tried him out a little bit in the outside, and I think they're a little bit more comfortable with him in the slot, so
Yeah.
they could get somebody on the outside. I
Yeah.
had them going with Greg Newsome the second here.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of a reach, but I think that's somebody where they have to throw some resources at the cornerback. If they don't, I think maybe a wide receiver, if one of the wide receivers slipped a little bit, could also be an option for them. But yeah, it's a glaring need in the secondary right now for Arizona.
Yeah. Let's go Raiders 17. Now this is an interesting one for me. If he falls there, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah just seems like a good fit. It seems like a Mayock and Gruden type pick. I don't know. What do you think for the Raiders here?
Yeah, their defense just really doesn't have a lot of talent or playmakers right now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways they could go. I had them picking Trayvon Merrick,
Oh, the
just
safety.
because. Yep, Jonathan Abram kind of been injured a little bit, hard hitter, not great in coverage, and then they've got besides that, so their cornerbacks are really bad. They did just make some investments last year with Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski for their linebackers, and they were okay. So I think like okay on the Raiders defense, that's about as good as you're going to get on their depth chart right now. So I think you could maybe make some bigger investments somewhere else, but just any playmakers I think would be a good addition to that defense.
Yeah. And again, in that division, you got to get the defense going. So we'll see on that. With Miami, so I'm still thinking help Tua. So I gave him Jamar Chase. What I'm going with here, this may be a little bit of a reach. We'll see what you think of this. I like Bama running back Najee Harris to the Dolphins. I think I would love to see this happen selfishly. I'm a big Najee Harris fan, and that could help Tua and the offense, a guy like that. What do you think?
I think you know me. I'm not a huge early running back guy, so wasn't a thing that I would slot to them. I do think he's a very good player. Um, I personally went. This is where I had Micah Parsons dropping to.
Okay.
So that Belichick disciple defense where they can use him in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, kind of like a Dante Hightower blitzing. He's a great run defender. So that's what I had them slated to go.
You think Parsons falls a little bit because of like character issues or anything like that? I think talent wise, I would consider taking him top 10. What do you think?
Yeah, he's definitely super athletic. He was an edge defender in high school. He switched kind of the off the ball spot, and once he got to Penn State, he hasn't really had a lot of experience playing coverage. He's pretty decent in zone, but has played almost no man coverage at all. So
Mhm.
there's a few questions with him in coverage. So I think he's going to need to go to a defense that knows how to use him, to his strengths. You just can't drop him back, have him covering these shifty running backs all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely some character concerns. A lot of people you hear about the hazing incident and some other minor stuff in high school, but a lot of people are kind of hinting that there is a little bit more behind the scenes beyond that kind of stuff. So if somebody did take a kind of a fall on draft night, I could definitely see Micah Parsons being one of those guys that happened to.
Yeah, I saw something like choking a teammate or something, and some stuff like that. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see. But I've seen some people on Twitter saying he's the best defensive guy on the draft board. So we'll see. I mean, he's one of those where it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. He could fall a little, but he's very talented. So I like that. And I like him going to Miami. I mean, the New England style defense, definitely. Washington here is interesting. I had them going Darisaw in most of my mocks. I could see them going Tevin Jenkins. Um, do you think a guy like maybe Zaven Collins is a possibility here? What do you think Washington's thinking?
Yeah, I think they do have a big time need at linebacker, and this is where I had Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa going,
Okay.
JOK. Um, Especially with how strong their defensive lineman is. JOK isn't somebody you want to take on a lot of offensive linemen head to head. You want him to have free space to just kind of attack. And I think with those big linemen in front of him, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, he's going to
Yep.
be freed up to just be a playmaker. And I think this would be a great scheme fit for him.
Yeah, I think Washington. I'm looking forward to Washington next year. I think they're going to be much improved. So I'm looking forward to seeing that with Fitzmagic there and stuff. So I like that pick. Now my Bears at 20. There's some trade up talk. I don't want them to trade up. I don't want them to give up a bunch for the fourth or fifth best quarterback. I say stay put. I mean, already we signed Andy Dalton, so how much worse can it get? Ready to punt this season away. So I would stay at 20 and take the best available offensive lineman, which, we're already taking up a lot of them. The top ones that are coming out, like, there's what's your thoughts on like Samuel Cosme? I haven't been a fan of him this entire in all my mocks. Do you think that he could go in the first round still, or is he starting to fall out of the first round?
I definitely think he is a guy who could be in the first round. He's super physically talented. He's just he bends at the waist a lot, which is not something you want to see. You definitely want a solid offensive line coach to be able to teach him up because he
Yeah.
has all the physical tools and he shows all the flashes. So he could be a guy who could be a top tackle in a couple years, but I don't think he's a guy you draft right away and think he's going to hit the ground running.
Yeah. I would take, I have Dylan Radins out of North Dakota State ahead of him. And I think I would consider taking him if I'm the Bears here. If there's no one else available that high, I'm higher on Dylan Radins than most. Like,
I'm a big Radins fan too, and for my mock, you'll see him coming off here not too far in the future.
nice. And all my mocks, I had Tevin Jenkins going to Chicago. So uh, we'll see if he's available there or not.
I
Um,
actually, for the Bears, I had them taking Rashad Bateman.
like him.
Very talented wide receiver. He came in a little bit smaller than I think a lot of people wanted, but you know, the Bears, I think, don't know what Allen Robinson's future with the team is. And
Yeah.
beyond him, they've got Darnell Mooney. Anthony Miller apparently is on the hot seat. They don't like him. And beyond those guys, they really don't have a whole lot of wide receivers. So I think a Rashad Bateman could be good for the future of the team.
How do you think Bateman compares to Kadarius Toney? I like
Uh,
Toney.
I like Bateman better.
Okay.
Tony, he's a little bit of a gadget guy. He's a guy who doesn't have a lot of route refinement. He's one of those guys who gets open all the time, but doesn't necessarily do it in the rhythm of the offense. He'll do a
Okay.
lot of extra moves, a lot of stuff. He's super electric with the ball in his hand. He is a little older. He did start off as a quarterback, so I think he's going to be 24 here pretty soon. But he definitely, if you have a scheme, kind of like one of those Shanahan schemes where you can
Yes, that's what I
him the
was
ball
thinking.
and get him the ball in space and just let him go. I think that would be his best situation.
I could see that in Chicago trying to use him in the Cordero Patterson type. And I
Yeah.
like the kind of a comparison of Debo Samuel and those end arounds and little
Yep.
gadget stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll put Bateman here. Let's go Colts. Colts is an interesting one. If tackle's available, I would go with that. Let's say, one of them falls. But I think corner is more likely, whether it be Greg Newsome, who's already off your board, or Caleb Farley. Are those, if either of them's available, I think they would go corner. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, they've got Xavier Rhodes and Kenny Moore. on the outside,
Mhm.
which okay cornerbacks are Nicholas Rock-Ya-Sin, who has definitely not lived up to his draft spot.
Yep.
Um, I went edge defender here to give DeForest Buckner a little bit of help. Right now,
Okay.
their edge defenders are Taekwon Lewis and Ben Banogu, not game changers. I really swung for the fences here for the Colts. I picked Jason Owe, had
Okay.
a historic pro day, all the tools you want to see, moves differently than a lot of other defensive ends. So you pair him next to DeForest Buckner, run some stunts, just let him get after the quarterback. I think that could really pay dividends, especially in a year or two for them.
All right. So, what's your thoughts on the edges? Is Owe like is he your top edge, or is that just best fit?
I think that it's best fit. I think it's a lot of just kind of scheme and nitpicking here. I think based on talent alone, the number one guy is probably Jalen Phillips.
Okay.
Really, he's physically talented. He is refined in his pass rush moves. It's just that history of concussions really kind of scares me. Took a
Yep.
little break from football. But yeah, I think if he didn't have any of those concerns, I think he would be a lock for the top 10 to 12 picks. But because of those, I bumped him down just a little bit.
Okay. And then my favorite pass rusher. Tell me what you think of this guy, Aziz Ojolari. I think in the right system, the right fit, he's a freak athlete. He's a monster. Like not only I know that he's more of a pass rusher than a run stopper, but that happens with a lot of pass rushers when they get out of their run lanes. And I think he can get better at that. But to me, whenever he gets to the ball, it doesn't matter what angle or whatever, he always delivers a big hit. And I like that. He's got a little monster in him. What's your thoughts on Aziz Ojolari?
Yeah, he's got super long arms. So he's a little bit short, but he has that low center of gravity and those long arms to really kind of leverage his
The club
yep,
is moved. Yeah.
yep, and the long arm too. He does that long arm and goes in. So I think out of all of the pass rushers, I think him and Quiddy Pay have the highest floor. I
Mhm.
don't know if either of those guys are really ever going to be in kind of the realm of the Chase Youngs, the Miles Garrett's, the Boses, but I
Yeah.
think those are guys you can confidently pick, plug them into your defense, and just think they're going to be solid starters.
Nice. All right, let's go. Titans, pick 22. Again, I'm thinking corner. I went Caleb Farley here. Um, what do you think for the Titans? Do you think corners are one of the biggest needs? Or edge? I know edges too.
Yeah, they've got some definitely a few needs here. I think kind of secretly, not a lot of people are talking about this, but they lost a lot of talent over the offseason.
Hmm.
I don't really like their kind of short-term outlook here. But yeah, they could use help in the secondary. Their offensive line could use help. Their defensive line, I think, could use a little help. I put Tevin Jenkins in here for them.
Okay.
Obviously, Isaiah Wilson did not pan out for them. And right
Yeah.
now they've got Kendall Lamb as slated as their starting right tackle. So I think Tevin Jenkins kind of has that mean, nasty streak that they would really look for that running game and Derrick Henry. So that's what I did. But if their medical checks out for Caleb Farley, I think that'd be a great landing spot for him here. Or maybe if one of the other cornerbacks
Do
drops.
something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
And also, like you said, second round, they could potentially get offensive line as well. Yeah. Jets again, edge and corner. With you giving, talk about Jalen Phillips. I've always thought Jalen Phillips to the Jets made a lot of sense. Do you like that?
That is exactly what I had. I think Robert Saleh coming from the 49ers, that they have historically invested a ton into their defensive line and the edge defenders. And
Yep.
just the upside of his talent right here, I think would be too good to pass up.
Yeah, I'm torn between Phillips and Quiddy Pay. I think that Salah kind of likes Quiddy Pay as well, so I can see either one.
Yep, definitely.
Steelers pick 24. Now this is interesting. I don't know. You might be a little surprised by this pick here. Um, one of the biggest losses for the Steelers in the offseason was center Marquise Pouncey retires. I like Landon Dickerson here. Maybe that's a little high in the first round, but that's where I went. What do you think?
Now, I think if the medicals checks out, I think that
Mhm.
is right around where he should be going, kind of the late first area. I had kind of had a similar line of thinking here. I had Elijah Vera Tucker falling to them at 24. So
Okay.
a big, a solid interior offensive lineman. But yeah, I think their offensive line could definitely use a little boosting here. Um,
Who else did they lose? I know they lost Pouncey, and did they lose Villanueva or who
yep,
else? Yeah, going to
Villa,
win
Villanueva, he is slated to, I know
Baltimore.
he, well, no, yeah, he just met with Baltimore.
Yeah.
He hasn't signed yet, so I guess there's a chance they could sign him back.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, right now their offensive line, their left tackle is slated to be Jerron Jones. Their right tackle is Chukuma Okorafor. So
Yeah.
yeah, they could use upgrades all over the place there.
Okay. Let's go Jacksonville. Um, they could use. I mean, you could go Samuel Cosme here. You could go Dylan Radons, offensive line. Um, I've put I've put Christian Barmore here before as well. What do you think the Jags should do here?
So this is where I hinted earlier. This is where I slated Dylan Reduns. So um, their offensive line is a little shaky, especially at the tackles. I know they franchise tagged Cam Robinson. He hasn't lived up to his draft billing. Right tackle, they got Jawan Taylor, who's just been mediocre. So I think plugging Dylan Reduns there, kind of as a long-term protector for Trevor Lawrence could help them a lot.
Yeah, I think with Trevor Lawrence, I think offensive line would be a good way to go there. So let's go ahead and put him there. Now, what are you thinking? So all the Browns fans want a linebacker. What are you thinking for the Browns?
I actually had them going Quiddy Pay here.
Okay.
I know they just signed Jadeveon Clowney, but it's just on a 1 year deal. Um, and I think getting that rotation, especially Clowney, I think is better on those third downs, rushing from the interior. So if you get Miles Garrett and Quiddy Pay, maybe Tack McKinley and Jadeveon Clowney kind of doing that kind of a NASCAR package for them, that could really be a strong defensive front.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they need to, get the defense going, and I look forward to the Browns. How excited are you to watch the Browns in 2021 with like a little bit of expectations now and a target on their back? I'm interested to see how Stefanski and Baker Mayfield and then bounce back.
Yeah, I think the Browns might have a top five roster in the NFL, just total talent. It's
Yeah.
it's all going to depend on how well Baker Mayfield plays.
Yep.
He had those big flashes as a rookie. Since then, has just been okay. We'll see with him in the second year of the offense. Odell Beckham's going to be back, so if he
Yep.
could take a step, Odell Beckham returns to form, they could easily be a Super Bowl contender.
And the thing they wasted that year with Freddie Kitchens. What were they thinking?
Yeah, I actually wasn't a huge hater on that Freddie Kitchens hire,
Yeah.
but obviously he was not the guy for the job.
Well, and Stefanski is pretty damn good too. That's a good
Yeah,
hire.
yeah, that was a definite upgrade.
Yeah. Ravens here at 27. I would love to see Aziz Ojolari go to Baltimore here. Who do you think's the best fit?
That is who I had plugged in, Aziz
Nice.
Ojolari. They need an edge defender. I think the Ravens have a long history of taking these guys who maybe aren't the prototypical, height, weight, speed guys and plugging them in and putting them into letting them play to their strengths. So I think he could come in, maybe start as a part-time role, and by around his year 3 or 4 be one of the
Yeah.
top edge rushers in the NFL.
As a guy who loves defense, the Ravens usually have a pretty damn good one. I would love to see that.
Yep.
Saints, corner, wide receiver, some needs. I liked the idea. I was putting Terrace Marshall to them here out of LSU. Um, I could see them going corner. I still have Greg Newsome on my board, so I think that makes some sense. What do you think for the Saints? Would you rather go receiver or corner? Or who are you thinking?
Yeah, I think if the value there for wide receiver, that would be a good pick. I've heard some rumblings about Terrace Marshall. I think he's had some medical things pop up at the medical combine recently with a foot issue,
Yeah.
and I've heard the NFL isn't quite as high on him as maybe a lot of media people are.
Okay.
I think he would be a strong pick though. For them, I slated in Nick Bolton, the linebacker.
Okay.
I so I mean they've got Demario Davis, who's good. Beyond that, they've got Zach Bond, who is nothing to write home about. Nick Bolton, not the most physically gifted guy. I think he's just a really, really good football player. Brings the intensity, lays the wood, solid in coverage, good run defender. I think you could just plug him in from day one, and he would be an upgrade on that defense. That really, even though they've lost some people, should be the strong point of their team next year.
Yeah. What's your take on between you got Bolton going? How does he compare to Zaven Collins or Jamin Davis?
So Zaven Collins is a huge guy. I know his latest weigh-in, he was up over 270, I think, at
Yeah.
6'5". So, but he doesn't play that big. He's a little bit of a finesse player, great in coverage, but I think he kind of maneuvers around blocks instead of taking them on sometime.
Okay.
He's definitely, this would be around the range I think you start considering him,
Yeah.
because he is good in coverage. He's athletic, he's big. But I just like that kind of the attitude that Nick Bolton brings a little bit more. And Jamin Davis, athletic, but I mean, this was his first year. I think he was on the bench for the last like 2 or 3 years. So there's a few questions there, and I just a little inconsistent. More
Yeah.
of like a day two guy for me.
Yeah. I was just thinking day two guy. Yeah, I could see that. Pick 29 Green Bay. I mean, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep mocking them a wide receiver in the first round until they do it, which they probably won't. It'd be awesome if they took a quarterback here again. I like Rashad Bateman going here. If he's still available, I would jump at that. I also like Kadarius Toney, and Elijah Moore could be an option here. What do you
I
think?
think that those would be home run picks.
Mm-hmm.
I had Caleb Farley
Okay.
dropping all the way to Green Bay,
Damn, yeah.
and it's just with his back injury. I think there's a likelihood that his career just isn't very long in the NFL.
Yeah.
So Green Bay could take him, let him finish out with Aaron Rodgers, give him a strong cornerback, and even if he only lasts 3 or 4 years, if he lasts the rest of Aaron Rodgers' tenure in Green Bay, then I think that would still be worth the first round pick.
Okay. And what do you think? I mean, would you take a wide receiver if not? Do you think first round they could go wide receiver, or would you maybe wait for second or third round? Because I mean, besides Devonte Adams, I just don't like the receiving core at all. And I think you give Rodgers one more weapon, and that could really, help out.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of just kind of fine guys.
Yeah, like okay, guys. Yeah,
Like I think a guy like Elijah Moore, I think would make a lot of sense right here. Just
yeah,
super explosive slot receiver would really complement Devonte Adams, and some of the bigger guys they have on the outside, an explosive weapon. So I think if they wanted to go wide receiver, that would be a great pick for them. Um,
What about
I
if Bateman's available here? How good of a fit do you think that would be?
I think that if he dropped all the way to pick 29, that would be a home run pick.
Yeah.
Um, I think they've like I said, they've got okay guys on the outside, so I don't think it's a huge need, but like an explosive slot player, I think would make a little bit more sense for them.
Yeah, I could see that. Let's go Bills at 30. And you're not going to like my pick here for Bills at 30, but I like this pick. I like running back Travis Etienne out of Clemson. I think the offense is explosive, and this would only help out even more. I mean, they were hoping Zach Moss, Devin Singletary would be the answer. I'm not sold on those guys. ETN provides like a home run threat with Josh Allen. It could be a little safety blanket for those dump down throws. When he's getting pressure and people hanging on him. But I know you're not a fan of two running backs in the first round here. Hey, and if Najee
Yeah.
Harris is available, I like that here too.
Yeah, and even Javonte Williams, I think, might be my favorite running back in the entire draft. So I could definitely see 2 or 3 running backs sneaking into the first round. But I had them actually going with Asante Samuel Jr. here, pairing him with Tre'Davious White. He's got tremendous instincts. The Bills run a ton of zone where they could really put that to use. So just getting a little bit better in the secondary would help them. And as far as running backs, they've invested with Zach Moss and Singletary in the past couple years. So I don't know if they're ready to move on from those guys quite yet.
Yeah. And I like that. I'm glad you mentioned Asante Samuel Jr. I had him in my last mock going to the Saints at 28. I could see him being a first round guy, and I'm a huge fan. I'm going to be rooting for him.
Yep.
31 pick Ravens. This is their recent. They just got from the Chiefs for the trade for Orlando Brown. First of all, how good of a deal is that for Kansas City getting Orlando Brown?
I think that was expected. I think after you kind of cancel out all the extra picks and stuff, it's just kind of a late first round pick, like about pick 31 is what they net overall. Maybe an early second, depending on what value you use. But I think that's about the value I expected to get from Orlando Brown.
Yeah, and that should help a lot. I mean, they needed to address the tackles. They could still get another one potentially later in the draft because they lost the 2 starters. But who they add? Who was it? Lucci? Who they add? Who's that guard they got from the Patriots? Right?
Name. So Zeitler. They added Zeitler from the the Giants cut Zeitler.
Okay.
So they might have added Lucci as well. I have right now Zeitler and Bozeman as their projected starters. So I'm sure that's something that's going to be a training camp battle.
Joe Thuney is who I was trying to talk about.
Oh, we're talking about the Chiefs.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was thinking the Ravens.
Oh, all good. Yeah, so the offensive line should be a lot better, and protect Mahomes has to be the goal there. For the Ravens, pick 31 now. If he's still available, Trayvon Moehrig, the safety from TSU. Maybe a guy like Zaven Collins here. What do you think for the Ravens?
I had them going Terrace Marshall.
Okay, I could see that.
Big wide receiver to kind of complement Marquise Brown. They got Sammy Watkins on a 1-year deal, but big physical guy who could help in the run game. Big target for Lamar Jackson. So I think that would help them a lot.
Yep. Let's go Tampa Bay at pick 32. And this is they return a lot of players from their Super Bowl run last year. But maybe not Antonio Brown. And they're in a position to pretty much take like best available. I would like this potential of rich getting richer if the Bucs had a guy like Kadarius Toney here.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a playmaker. I don't know if Tom Brady would like he's a little bit of a freelancer. So I think Tom Brady would kind of have to crack the whip a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'd have to ask him his opinion before we went there. But this is a team that really doesn't have any big weaknesses. I ended up picking Gregory Rousseau for them.
Okay.
A little bit more depth on the defensive line. Let them kind of rotate Pierre Paul and Shaq Barrett around. He's
Yeah.
also really good rushing from the interior, so they could rotate him
Pass
with
rush would be
Vita.
nasty.
Yep, yep. Just all those guys rotating in and out, especially when you consider they're probably going to be playing from the lead a lot. So getting some of those high-powered pass rushes in would probably help them.
All right. Sounds good. Well, that's our first round. I mean, I can't wait. This draft is going to be dope. I already got work off so I can catch it. What's your pick of the draft? What's your most important pick or a pick that you think you're most confident about?
Can I just say Trevor Lawrence? I mean, that's the easy one right there. But I
Yeah.
think if you're talking about confidence, I think Patrick Surtain to the Cowboys. It's just
Yeah.
too easy. It's just value and need, just kind of meet up right there. I think the most important pick is probably going to be San Francisco at 3, because
Yes.
depending on who they go, that is going to change the entire complexion of the first round.
This
So,
is so cool. Is you get one wild
yep,
card pick there and it changes
yep,
everything.
exactly. Because
Atlanta and San Francisco.
if
Yeah.
they go Mac Jones, you could easily see like teams just lining up to try to trade up to number 4 to get Justin Fields or even Trey Lance. And
Yeah.
then Falcons go back, somebody moves up, and then there's a huge shuffling behind them. So
What do you think the
guess we'll have
chance,
to wait and see.
whether it's Atlanta or Atlanta trades out, of 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks? Because that's kind of what I'm rooting for.
I think it's probably about 50% right now.
Wow. That's high.
Yeah. I mean, maybe even higher than 50, maybe more like 66%, because I think Atlanta could pick a quarterback, they could pick a skill player, or they could trade out for somebody who wants to pick a quarterback. So 2 out of those 3 options, it's a quarterback going at number 4. So that could be the play there.
Yeah, I hope so. I can't wait, man. This draft is going to be awesome. It's great to have you on, Cody. Great insight as always. You're our go-to draft expert, so appreciate it. We'll keep up the talking football off season. It'll be good stuff. So I can't wait for this draft. Maybe we'll have you back on post draft to get your reactions on some of this too.
Yep. Always glad to do it. Alex, had a blast.
All right, awesome. Thanks, and appreciate the support, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think, and have a great week. Peace out.